Thank you for joining us today. This is Mr. White, Consultant Trauma and Orthopaedic Surgeon, a highly experienced surgeon as well as expert witness. Today we're going to have a chat about what Mr. White does as an expert witness as well as during his day job. So Mr. White, can you give us a brief description of your job, your day job as a surgeon as well as your job as an expert witness?
So my day job, I'm a doctor, and my specialty is in orthopaedic trauma surgery. So that means I work in a hospital, and my job involves treating patients who've had injuries and accidents, usually involving performing surgery. And that's quite separate from my work as an expert witness, where I write reports on patients who've had injuries or have had orthopaedic surgery.
So as an expert witness, Mr. White, what would you say your duty is to the court?
So I think that's a very important question. I think most people who come and see me for a report are under the impression that I'm either going to be writing a report that supports their position or alternatively supports the position of the other side. But actually my duty is to the court, and I have to be independent and write a report that is not influenced by either side.
So you're obviously independent, and that's very important to what you do as an expert witness. Can you give me a description of what goes into a report and how you would go about compiling a report and what the kind of documents you would look at?
So I think there are 4 parts to every report. There's the medical evidence, there's the client's current position, there are the medical records, and then the final part is my opinion. So to go through each of those, the medical evidence has to be taken really from the beginning. I want to know, so for example, if I was seeing you, I'd be asking you what happened. Did you have an operation? What was explained to you at the time? Did things go according to plan? What were the consequences? How was your recovery? Did you require physiotherapy and so on? And we'd talk about how things had gradually evolved to the present day. The second part would be to ask about your current position. So have you completely recovered, or have you still got some problems? Have you got pain or numbness or weakness or some difficulty with your work, for example, or how you spend time with your family? That would then naturally lead on to a physical examination. The third part is the medical records, and I'm usually supplied with a huge pile of records, usually from birth right up until the present day, which I have to go through in some considerable detail. And sometimes that's just done by myself in an office, but often there are particular parts that I would like to ask you about. I may be saying, well, I see this entry in the records that said that somebody came and spoke to you. Is that what you recall? And we'd maybe discuss exactly what happened in some detail for some of the parts. And then in orthopedics particularly, the x-rays and scans are also important. So we often look at the scans together, and I think that's quite helpful for both of us. I get an insight into what the problem was and what the operation might have been. And I think also the client gets a little bit of an understanding as to what has happened. And then the fourth part is my opinion and my report. So that's the time at which I then have to sit back and look at all the facts that have come out of all of that discussion and review, and then come to a view on exactly what happened and whether the treatment was correct and whether the treatment was the type of treatment that should have been given in that situation.
You explained during your report that often you would examine the clients. Can you explain what a client can expect during an examination?
Yes, I almost always need to examine the client. It's only the part of the body that's been affected, so I don't conduct a full physical examination, but I do need to see the part that's been affected, and if it's an arm or a leg, usually the other side for comparison. So if it's just a neck maybe, or the hands, the client doesn't even need to move from the chair. I can examine them where they are. But if it's a shoulder or a hip, usually it will involve taking off some clothes. So it is useful if the clients come maybe with a pair of shorts available for that part of the examination. And then obviously my day job involves examining people the whole time. So I'm very used to examining injured limbs, and I just have to do a very careful, gentle examination of things like how much movement the limb has and how much power it has, and maybe whether there's a problem with the sensation or the nerves.
What do you enjoy most about being an expert witness, and what do you least enjoy about being an expert witness?
So I think the thing that's most satisfying is the fact that most doctors go into medicine in order to try and help people and make things better. And then when things do go wrong, it's very important that that's put right as quickly as possible and as painlessly as possible. And I like to think that I provide a small part of that whole process. The part that I least enjoy is having to go through piles of medical records and read other doctors' handwriting.
Have you given evidence in court, and what was it like?
Yes, I have. I've given evidence in the Sheriff's Court and in the Court of Session and in the English High Court. And it's a strange experience, I think. The atmosphere, the dress, the way that people speak is all quite different from normal life. And it can seem quite intimidating. And I think I remind myself that it's a very formal process designed so that everybody's evidence and views can be heard and then double-checked carefully in order that a fair decision can be made.
How do you juggle your day job as a surgeon as well as acting as an expert witness?
They're both quite demanding, and I think the secret is to be very organised and keep those two parts of my world quite separate. So when I'm at work in the hospital doing my NHS job, I have to be completely focused on that. And so my medical legal expert work is done on days when I'm not on duty in the hospital. And it takes some time sometimes to go through all the records and to consider all the evidence. And so that sometimes also then goes into evenings and weekends when my wife doesn't mind.
You're obviously a very busy man. Can I ask, how does being an expert witness impact on your NHS work?
I think there are three main impacts. The first is that obviously I spend a lot of time looking in some detail at cases where things have gone wrong, working out what went wrong and why it went wrong, and that inevitably provides an opportunity to learn from other people's problems. The second is that lawyers place a great weight on paperwork, and it makes me, I think, much more careful in making my own notes and recording carefully what I've said to people. And then finally, it's shown me that as in most things in life, a lot of problems are caused or made worse just by poor communication and misunderstandings and the frustrations that come of not thinking that you've been heard properly. And I think reflecting on that has helped me with my own communication and hopefully has made me a better doctor.
Thank you, Mr. White, for your time today. That was really interesting and a great insight into what an expert witness does, as well as your day job as a surgeon. If you would like more information, you can go on our website for more detailed content.